Well, yeah, can't win them all. The Washington Capitals have one of the best West Coast trips you could imagine. It just didn't end well.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Capitals. I am your host, as always, the insider to the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. Wrapping up the first West Coast trip of the season, the first 4-game West Coast trip for the Washington Capitals with the addition of the Seattle Kraken. And yeah, not an awful road trip, dare I say. 2-1-1 out in California. We'll break it down. We'll wrap up how it went this past Saturday and Sunday. Yes, I know there were any Locked On Now as I was doing. Two things. One, late night games. Still not a thing I'm really used to. Reacting to games right after at 1:30 in the morning, unless you want, like I said, you want to see the old freaking crypt keeper over here. And number two, was busy all weekend. Even though I didn't have any games to broadcast, I was preoccupied with stuff. So I apologize now. I should say it in advance, but oh well, who cares? But we'll wrap up the two games, kind of overlook the entire West Coast trip as a whole, give our cool caps of the night, and kind of have a nice little reprieve for the next couple of days in regards to getting ready for the next game, which is on Wednesday, the day prior to Thanksgiving. One thing I should mention, I'll probably mention this a couple more times this week, there will be no show on Thanksgiving Day, even though I'll be honest with you, I'll probably be recording Friday's episode on Thanksgiving because I will be on the road. I'll be with Western Michigan this weekend. So yes, kids, that means you're going to see me in a different location. It will not be this lovely fancy setup we have here. I am bringing the good microphone though, because other reasons I have to bring the good microphone. So all that will happen on this week. So only 4 shows this week. I know. Oh my gosh. Tyler, how dare you? Listen, I've been told Thanksgiving's apparently a holiday I should be celebrating. I mean, I'm not going to be in town. I don't know exactly how we're celebrating on the road. I mean, I'll probably be like, oh, thank you for hockey, all that good stuff. And thanks for being with the boys and all that and yada, yada. Kumbaya. Don't really get, yeah. Anyway, so we'll get to all that. Sorry, the coffee isn't quite kicking. I'm actually recording this morning. Like, actually, it is, 7 o'clock in the morning now. I woke up at about 5:30 to get ready for this little thing. So, anywho, thank you all very much for making Locked On Capitals your first listen and first watch of the day and every day. Wherever you get your podcasts, that's where you can listen. And on the Locked On Capitals YouTube channel, Sean Woodley helped me out this weekend. We're kind of bolstering it up a little bit, making it look a little more professional and proper and has more stuff on it. I mean, it's got the same amount of stuff, just kind of it looks bigger and better and cool. Anyways, thank you to Sean for helping us out here. By the way, for all you Torontonians out there, people that follow me at TJKU29, Locked On Raptors. That's what Sean does. He's having an up and down show, mainly because of the fact that the Raptors are up and down. So it's like he's been following them, and for the best of the matter is that the Raptors they're in the hunt right now. But it's like, are they going to be good? But you can follow them and all the other stuff basketball after you watch and listen to this episode of Locked On Capitals. So let's talk about last night's game first, given the fact that everyone had a good day to talk about the San Jose Sharks win on Saturday, which we'll touch on later on in the show. And like I said, when we recap the entire California/Seattle trip in just a little bit. By the way, the Northwest trip isn't coming up much later either. I believe that's coming up next month, I believe, right? Yes. Next month? No. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. When is it? Am I thinking of another team? That's the Northwest trip. Sorry. I was thinking of the Western Canada trip, which is always fun. Oh, that doesn't come until March. Yep. It was definitely looking at someone else's schedule yesterday when I was talking about that. So anyways, Sunday night, Climate Pledge Arena, Caps coming off the second half of a back-to-back. They get a big win in San Jose, a 4-0 win. Dare I say a rare shutout against the Sharks, the way they've been playing. And yeah, I was not quite ready to see that game go the way it did, mainly because of the fact that, well, first of all, when you find out that Connor Sheary, who had just scored 2 goals the night before, is out with an upper body injury. Okay, that's not good. But it's all right. We got a few young kids out there. They'll play some bigger minutes. And then all of a sudden you hear TJ Oshie, who's lived a lot of his time in the Seattle area. Bummer for that young man. He's 30. Anyways, all of a sudden he's out with a lower body injury after getting an assist in his first game back on Saturday night against San Jose. it's the foot, right? You would think it's the foot. I don't remember anything personally happening to Oshie that caused something. He probably just re-aggravated that foot. We haven't obviously heard any confirmation. Now, granted, everyone's probably still asleep out in Seattle, or I think today is the travel day, so they're probably still sleeping. So I don't think anything's come of it as of yet. So anyways, long story short, 11 forwards, 5 defense is what the Caps played with against Seattle. They started off pretty all right. I mean, I'm not going to say that they had a sluggish start, because typically when teams have back-to-backs, what you really see is you see that team say, hey, we can't show like we're on a back-to-back. And they come out really strong, really fast, and really hard, which is what the Washington Capitals did. They came out with a couple of chances early and often. They end up getting 11 shots to Seattle's 14 in the first period, because Seattle realized, hey, this team is primed for the picking, even though they had lost 6 games in a row. Yet, Evgeny Kuznetsov, good hard forecheck, caused the turnover, feeds it to Tom Wilson, who scores his 6th goal of the season, makes it 1-0 Washington. Good start. Later on in the period, bad finish to the period. Kind of a weird scramble in front. Geeky gets up to the point on a power play, by the way. Puck comes out, and Jared McCann shoots it. It goes off Nick Dowd into the back of the net on a backhander. Not much Vanacek could have done. That is McCann's 7th goal of the season. Boy, Toronto wishes they probably kept him. Granted, they just won last night. That's neither here nor there, though. It's 1-1 after 20 minutes of play. Like I said, as that first period wore on, you already saw the fatigue really start to set in on Washington. And it didn't seem like it was going to go well, but I didn't think the second period was really all that expected. Sorry, whenever you give up 3 goals in a period, it's not pretty. And that's what Washington kind of unfortunately did last night. You get Jaden Schwartz scoring his 4th just a few minutes in, and then all of a sudden, just less than 43 seconds later, here comes Yanni Gourde on left wing side, and Adam Larson, noted offensive defenseman, strict up the right wing side. He feeds him across. It's 3-1. Johnny Fortson, that's hockey, baby! Yeah, he's doing all that in the booth there at Root Sports. And I mean, don't forget, once again, Seattle had lost 6 games in a row. They've blown a couple leads, so he's probably like excited the fact that there's a 2-goal lead against the Washington Capitals, who had not lost since the beginning of this month in regulation. So, yes, a little excited. Later on, Calle Jarnkrok, beautiful snipe. His first of the season, by the way. Him and Larson, both their first goals as members of the Kraken. 2 of the Jarnkrok was the first player picked. Larson was the first free agent signing. So, yes, 2 of these players that really had high expectations to be key contributors to this hockey club. Now, granted, Larson, a much different way, because he's not really an offensively gifted young man, old guy, whatever you want to call him. Hey, Taylor Hall, 1 for 1. All of a sudden, him and Jarnkrok get off the schneid, and Seattle's off and running. It's 4-1 after 2. Ovi gives the Caps a little bit of hope. He scores his 15th goal of the season. Dare I say, back in the swing of things, everyone's kind of like, oh my gosh, he didn't score against Anaheim or LA, even though he got a couple points in those games. But Ovechkin's hitting a cold spot. And he's like, bruh, I'm Ovechkin. Or however he would say it in a Russian dialect. I'm not going to try to do that. His 15th of the season, by the way. Orlov gets the primaries, even though it's a great shot by Ovechkin. Orlov gets primary. Wilson, his 10th assist of the season. Noted playmaker Tom Wilson. Now, granted, he just touched it off to Orlov, but that's not here nor there. But Yanni Gourde ends it all with an empty netter late in regulation. 5-2, the loss for the Washington Capitals. Boo-hoo. You know, when you lose a regulation game, it stinks. And, it's so crazy. And we'll kind of get onto this a little bit more as we kind of wrap up the whole West Coast trip here in our next little bit. But the fact of the matter is, I don't look at this as a bad loss. I look at this as a team that was shorthanded. They just played their second back-to-back of the week. Granted, I know there were a couple days off in between, but it's not like they went from Anaheim to Los Angeles, where it's a quick bus trip down the road. They went from San Jose, what's that called? Not Santa Monica. I don't, whatever the term is, like the area, the Bay Area. There we go. We'll say that. I was trying to think of what's it called, like the techie area they call it down there in California. It's too early for me to try to figure this out right now. Anyways, the Bay Area to Seattle. That's a plane ride, and yes, you get on the plane right after the game, but then you didn't have a morning skate, so your routine's kind of knocked out there. You're just kind of waking up, maybe getting a little bit ride on the bicycle there, on the spin bike, stretch out a little bit, and boom, you have to play. Oh, by the way, you're missing 2 guys that play pretty contributing factors on Saturday night's win. I thought, I mean, I get it. Back-to-back games where there were times that Seattle or the other team looked like the better team. Granted, I have to remind you folks, Washington still outshot Seattle in this one. They outshot them 39 to 31. That's because their third period where they just peppered Philip Grubauer. Philip Grubauer, who was probably like, "See, guys, you shouldn't have let me go," even though you won the President's Trophy last year, Mr. Grubauer, and you were out in the second round. You were out after the Caps were, but that's okay. But the fact of the matter is this: Grubauer played a really good game. He made some big stops, especially in the third period as well. Because when Ovi scores that goal, all of a sudden it's a 2-goal game, and Washington continued to wrap up the chances. And it just seemed like maybe if they got one more, it could have been a game. But Grubauer said, no, you outshoot the other team with a shorthanded roster, and you lose. There are games that you just lose. But yeah, we lost to Seattle. We lost to only a 5-win team. Now, listen, guys. The Chicago Bulls in the 95-96 season, the year they went 72-10, which I don't care what Golden State did a few years ago. At least Chicago won a championship that year. Remember, kids, that team lost to the expansion Toronto Raptors. One of the 10 losses the Bulls had that year was to the 95-96 Toronto Raptors. Yes, that is right. The Jurassic Park Raptors. Purple and a little bit of black and a little bit of red. Those Raptors. The only thing I really knew about those Raptors is the fact that they still played at the Sky Dome back then. They didn't even allow them. I mean, Scotiabank Arena, well, then was known as ACC, was just being, just a blueprint plan. They weren't even building that arena yet. So they had to do with like they did with like the Atlanta Hawks and the Detroit Pistons back in the day. We're going to put them into a big stadium and kind of cut everything off. And they beat Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, the whole kit and caboodle. Phil Jackson led Chicago Bulls. If you didn't see the Chicago Bulls, people were like, oh my gosh, our season's over. No, they didn't do that. So don't panic about this loss. By the way, if anyone knows anything about those Toronto Raptors, I would name me a player from that team. No, not you, Sid Sixero. You probably know, but anyone else, any of us Yankee Doodle dandies that know anyone from that team, congratulations. You are seriously staring at Basketball Reference right now. Like that is how tough those Raptors years were early on. So, but that's my thing. Don't panic about this loss against Seattle. Yes, it is kind of a sour way to end what was a pretty darn successful California trip, especially we talked to John Walton last week. The California teams, they're not slouches anymore. They're trying to get out of their rebuilds they were all in all of a sudden, and all of a sudden they're contenders for division titles. Well, at least one of them is. But nonetheless, we'll kind of wrap all things up and look back at that game against San Jose on Saturday as well here in just a moment. But guys, does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, and another lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I'm going to tell you about something that, without all the hassle, a great way to finally get your TV together to get all the entertainment you love and more. Directv stream. Oh, excuse me. Ugh. Coffee's kicking in. Directv Stream. It lets you bring your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can catch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in the same place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. The best part, no annual contract. That means getting rid of the clutter and the confusion by getting your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. So now let's kind of look back at that game on Saturday against the Sharks. Couple days off, like we'd mentioned, and yeah, in a very weird game. I don't say it was a sluggish game, but there were only 43 shots on goal in total. San Jose actually outshooting the Caps 22-21. Now this was with Connor Sheary in the lineup. This was with TJ Oshie making his first appearance since blocking a shot against Detroit back in October, and it just seemed like the Sharks, even though they had more chances, Ilya Samsonov didn't have to be really tested that much, even though he picks up the 22-save shutout in this one. I thought the Caps played a solid game. They weren't flashy. They weren't amazing. They weren't crazy, but they still got the win. Connor Sheary scores twice, his fourth and fifth goals of the season. One of them kind of fluky on Aiden Hill. And Ovechkin has another great game, 2 goals and an assist. He scores his 13th and 14th goals. And I thought it was a really good game all around. By the way, Ovi scoring on a one-timer, by the way. That's a good thing to see. Good thing he still has that because, gosh forbid, we ever thought that he was ever going to really lose that in his arsenal, the one-timer. By the way, the first goal by Connor Sheary, they end up giving a secondary assist to Alexei Protas, his first National Hockey League point. All right, that away there, Prince Albert kid, him, Leeson, McMichael. Janssen Falvey is we're still waiting to get him on the score sheet, but he's certainly working there because I think he was on the second line a little bit in that game. He was getting some second line skates in the morning, skates in the practice. So I think he's gonna catch along here in just a moment, especially with the fact that now we don't know with Sheary, now we don't know with Oshie if that's his day to day, or if that's also Lars Eller still with COVID protocol. I think if he tests negative, the rule is if you test negative twice, if you're vaccinated, which everybody but Tyler Bertuzzi is in this league, you can get back on the ice. So obviously now he has a couple days to relax. Eller will, so maybe Eller could be back on Wednesday when they take on Montreal, but we'll obviously wait to see that. But you know what? The fact that Protest gets a point, awesome. Oshie got an assist on Ovechkin's first goal on the power play goal. Johnny Carlson picks up 2 assists in the game. The offense was looking good. Despite the lack of chances, they were able to convert. By the way, Ovechkin scoring twice, his 152nd multi-goal game. According to Capitals Public Relations, he sits 4th all-time in that category of scoring 2 goals in one game, with 152 now. Who does he sit behind? Well, it's the usual suspects. Mario Lemieux is in 3rd with 154. Brett Hull is in 2nd with 158. Wayne the Great One Gretzky, 189. I mean, if he's going to break the record of all-time goals, there's a chance. Oh, geez, hit my microphone. There's a chance he could obviously break that one as well. But that's obviously something to be foreseen later on. But the fact of the matter is this, Ovi still scoring a lot of goals, a lot of points. I mean, it's still, to me, it's still bonkers to look at the fact that he is still one of the league leaders in just about everything. He is right now 2nd in goals, tied for 2nd in goals with Andrew Mangiapane of Calgary, 3 behind Leon Draisaitl, but then again, he's playing with some guy named Connor McDavid, so that's a thing as well. And 3rd in points behind Draisaitl and McDavid with 30 points now after this West Coast swing. I don't know what more you want me to say about him. I don't know what more I can say about him. What I've not said already. He's still producing at a high level. Now, yes, it's so crazy because people are like, well, why don't the Caps play better? I'm like, I don't know what you want to expect out of this hockey club. Guys, I picked this team to finish 3rd in the division, and I expected a massive drop-off between the Islanders and Caps, or Islanders and Canes, and then the Caps in 3rd. I thought there was going to be a good 7 or 8 point drop-off. Now, once again, there's a lot of time here for something to happen. Obviously, we're in Thanksgiving week, so we're getting close to that cutoff point of who's in and who's out. And sure, the Caps are showing that they can be a playoff team. However, there's a lot of time for things to go sideways for them. Obviously, we're still waiting on Backstrom, which don't hold your breath, kids. Also, we're waiting on what's the status of Anthony Mantha. Is he coming back soon? What is going to be the injury status of TJ Oshie and Connor Sheary moving forward? That's really not good news to look at. But here's the thing. I like the fact that this hockey club is still playing well. Right now, they're 2nd in the Metro. They are 1 point back of Carolina, who they do get next Sunday, by the way. 11-3-5. I'm looking at, let me see here. How many teams? 1, 2, 3 in the East and 1 in the West. Right now, there's only 4 hockey teams in the National Hockey League that have 3 or less regulation losses. Calgary in the Pacific. They lead the Pacific right now over the Edmonton Oilers by a singular point. Then you have the Florida Panthers, who are 13-2-3, 14-2, yet to lose an overtime or a shootout, are the Carolina Hurricanes, and 11-3-5, the Washington Capitals. That's why it's so hard to be like, oh my gosh, how can you lose to Seattle? When it's like, who cares? They're still playing well. It's and like I said, it was an unfortunate that Seattle got a great stretch there in that second period. If they don't score those back-to-back goals, yeah, you're right. It's a much different hockey game. But once again, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry, Merry Christmas. And let's hope we all do this year, especially. But looking at this trip, the fact is that Washington went into California against Anaheim, who is one of the better teams in the Pacific Division, against LA and San Jose, 2 teams that are much better than they were in the past. Seattle, I know they're an expansion team like we'd expect. But the fact of the matter is that they certainly outplayed Seattle outside of that few minute stretch there in the second period. Washington picks up 5 points out of 4 games. Their one The other loss was an overtime loss to the Anaheim Ducks. They picked up a point against the best team on this swing. They win the 2 games they certainly were supposed to, or 2 of the 3 they should have supposed to, but once again, playing a back-to-back and having to fly to Seattle, certainly not an easy trip for the Washington Capitals. But coming out above 500 and multiple points as a result is certainly something that you can say, okay, good. Now you go back home for a nice little home swing here, a little more comfort. You can get the turkey in the belly and sleep at home on the turkey in the belly. That is certainly a good thing for the Washington Capitals. Imagine if you had Turkey Day on Thursday, then you have to go and play Seattle or San Jose and Seattle on the weekend. You're right. That stuffing may slow you down a little bit more than you would have thought. So that's why I think Washington coming out of this West Coast trip certainly show that they are a team it just seems like they're better than they were last year. Right. I know. I get it. I mean, how can this team get better? They got older and they've had some turnover this year with having a lot of young kids having to play. How can they be better, Tyler? They just seem more focused. And we saw that this week. They just had a small blip against Seattle on Sunday, and they took on a good Anaheim team last week. What do you expect? When you play a good team, sometimes you're going to lose those games. You have an off night, you're going to lose games here in the National Hockey League. But once again, 5 points out of 4 games on a West Coast swing, time change, the whole kit and caboodle, having to fly over the Rocky Mountains and have a little turbulence. Yeah, I think Washington had a pretty successful West Coast trip, don't you think? So I'm really impressed by the way this team played. I don't say that this team really had a huge downfall. There is a good thing going on in Washington right now. A couple days off, though, before they take on Montreal this upcoming Wednesday. If you guys saw on the bottom of the YouTube screen, there we have the upcoming games for you. Wednesday against Montreal, and then you host Florida on Friday, and then you go for a small little, I don't want to say road trip, but you go to Carolina on next Sunday on a 1 o'clock game, and then back at it against Florida in Sunrise on Tuesday before coming back home for a few games there. Yeah, this is going to be a nice little stretch here. You're going to see a Montreal team that, it's having an off year, but they've shown that they can win if they put the right pieces together. Florida is not going to be. Then you take on 2 division leaders in 3 games. Florida twice, Carolina. We're going to really talk about a measuring stick scenario here for the Washington Capitals. Those 3 games are going to be it. So you get that nice little preview with Montreal in the middle there, but you really can't overlook the Habs at all because they still have talent. Cole Caulfield's back in the lineup. We'll get to obviously those matchups when we get closer to, but I'm really intrigued to see what Washington's going to do here to really show that they are a team to be reckoned with. But guys, speaking of Thanksgiving, all good food and treats and plenty of them, but maybe you want a yummy dessert but is not full of calories and sugar. Well, that's the perfect time for Built Bar. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert because you can feast on something delicious and feel good about it. Low calories, low carbs, low fat, high protein, and the chocolate flavored ones, guys, are covered in 100% real chocolate. Built Bar is not just a great option when you're hungry. It's also great if Thanksgiving is not coming soon enough because you can grab a Built Bar or 2. Share some at your family gatherings. It'll make things a little less awkward, and maybe Aunt Betty has not tried a Built Bar yet. New surprises all month, and nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday, because mark your calendar, guys, this Friday, Black Friday will have a huge event with all sorts of surprises on Built.com. Go to the Built.com website and use promo code LOCKED15, that is locked in the past tense with an ED there with the numbers 1 and 5 to get 15% off order. Once again, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. So now while we have you all here for a minute, let's take a look at the scores that happened last night. I'm not going to go into Saturday because it was a full slate of hockey games. You can look at it yourself, NHL.com, it's there. Or you can, if you use the NHL app, or some people use Sportsnet app or NBC Sports Watch, you can do whatever you want. There's ways to find the scores for Saturday. But I'll go over Sunday's scores just in case you did go to bed early last night. Tampa, even though there's a lot of afternoon games, Tampa wins in a shootout over Minnesota. Talk about a wild game that was. Get it? Minnesota Wild. Tampa is now 10-4-3. Minnesota, their first overtime or shootout loss this season. Rangers squeak out one against Buffalo. They still stay atop the Metro because of it. They're third in the Metro, 11-4-3 over now with Sabres at 7-8-2, falling back below 500. Calgary shows that they're still a very good team. Once again, jumping in the top of the Pacific with a 4-0 win over the Bruins on the road. Toronto makes their first trip to UBS Arena. New York Islanders now 0-2 at their new barn as the Leafs shut out New York 3-0. 5-8-2 are the Islanders. I know it's not time for panic yet, and I know Ryan Pulock's out for a little bit here, but the Islanders, my first place pick, last in the division. Now, granted, they have a lot of games in hand, but yikes, kids. Chicago, and listen, guys, if Travis Green and Jim Benning have jobs by the end of today or tomorrow or by American Thanksgiving, I'm going to be shocked. They lose 1-0 to Chicago last night at Rogers Arena. Something needs to change with that hockey club, right? Maybe not now, but probably the end of the season at the latest, there's going to be some movement in the front office and maybe on the bench for the Vancouver Canucks, even though the players have the vote of approval for Travis Green, even though Bim Jennings hasn't gotten that. Yes, I said Bim Jennings. It's a joke. Haha, funny, funny. Shout out to my boy Steve Dangle up there in Toronto. Vancouver's got to figure it out, right? Obviously, the other one, Seattle being Washington, and big winner for the Arizona Coyotes, guys. They've won 2 games now in the past week. Arizona wins 2-1 over the Los Angeles Kings in overtime. They're now 4-13-2. Now, hold on. I'm going to click something here. I just want to make sure I see this right. Does Arizona have points in each of the last 4 games? I remember I saw something where they were on a decent run. Holy cow, yes. So the Arizona Coyotes, guys, have points in their last 4 games. The 74-75 Caps are like, come on, take our record. Arizona's like, no, we're going to get Shane Wright. We're going to give our best chance to get Shane Wright, but we're not going down that easy. They won in overtime, against LA last night. That was also after an overtime loss against the Red Wings on Saturday. Or no, they won in overtime. They've won 2 in a row. Holy cow. I'm sorry, I'm looking at their numbers. So dare I say, folks, the Arizona Coyotes have won 3 of their last 4 games, and they had points in 4 straight. A shootout loss to Columbus jammed in the middle of all that. The Arizona Coyotes, guys, are hot. The hottest team in hockey and the hottest place in hockey, Arizona. Sorry, I got a little excited there for no reason. So, obviously, congratulations to Arizona, I guess. Maybe you're going to keep Phil Kessel and make a playoff run. No, I'm kidding. That's not going to happen at all. I love Carol Vamelka, but that's just not going to be a thing. Games on tonight, though. Obviously, a busy Monday night here in the National Hockey League. Buffalo hosting Columbus. An interesting game there. Blue Jackets trying to look for their 10th win of the season. Speaking of 10th wins, Vegas has 11. St. Louis has 9. They'll be meeting in Missouri. They'll be on Angel Network an 8 o'clock puck drop between the Golden Knights and the Blues. Ducks travel east to take on the Nashville Predators. The Ducks trying to get back up towards the top of the Pacific. Nashville hanging around the Central right now with a 9-7-1 record. Ottawa looking to bounce back, get off the losing streak, get a win against Colorado. In Denver, Winnipeg hosts the Pittsburgh Penguins, who won on Saturday against Toronto, but I thought they were falling off a cliff, but they're doing all right. San Jose hosting Carolina. Carolina's in their West Coast swing right now. That'll be in San Jose at 10:30. Carolina still, like I said, 14-2, has yet to lose outside of regulation. Quick Kuehl caps here to wrap up the week. We'll go Kuehl caps for the weekend here. How about it, all right? Alexander Ovechkin over the weekend, 3 goals and an assist, 4 points in the last 2 games. After being held pointless in LA and Anaheim, everyone's like, oh no, Ovi's slowing down. And then he's like, I need a couple days off, guys. It's a thing. I'm an old man. And he still comes out with 4 points. So everyone kind of calms down there. Tom Wilson had 2 goals and assists the entire road trip. I don't think he played bad at all. Obviously, scoring one of the 2 goals last night against Seattle. He's starting to contribute. He's got 16 points now on the season. I remember he had a real slow start to the year, but then again, all the Washington Capitals did. But now you're starting to see some depth pieces kind of come in. I know Daniel Sprong got banged up in morning skate earlier I think it was on Saturday. So, yeah, some guys are going to have to step up and play a little bit bigger minutes. Obviously, Wilson playing on that top line, it's kind of expected. So, certainly good to see him get some points over the weekend. And Johnny Carlson, yeah, he was held pointless last night against Seattle, but still on this road trip, 6 assists. 6 assists. Don't say that too many times or else your asses will tongue your twist tie into a yeah, exactly. Johnny Carlson, I really think he's got to be your best defenseman, right? And he has shown that this year we all thought was going to be a very light D core, that he was going to have to step up. And I think so far he has. especially this road trip offensively, power play points, 5-on-5 points. He's looked very good, very comfortable, has not seemingly been a liability on the defensive end. And I haven't really had to worry about his name too much when he's in his own zone. And that's certainly a good thing. And he's made some solid plays defensively and really starting to pick his play up on both ends of the ice. And that's certainly good for Washington as we go into this pretty tough stretch of the regular season. Those are the Kuehl caps of the week. So certainly be an interesting little run here. Like I said, Montreal Wednesday, and then 3 really tough games, 2 against Florida, 1 against Carolina. We'll get to those games later on this week. Of course, remember, no Thanksgiving show. I'm sorry. I want you guys to go stay at home and watch the Lions lose. Again, I watched that game against Cleveland yesterday, and I said to myself, wowza, this team can't seem to find a win at all, even though they did tie against Pittsburgh last week. But that's okay. Anyway, so thank you for making Locked On Caps your first listen and first watch of the day. Go make Locked On Bets your second listen of the day. We're your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, guys. Maybe getting you ready for a little bit more of the West Coast trip. Maybe do a player highlight as well. Didn't quite have enough time to get a guest lined up for tomorrow. It would have been pretty good, pretty great. Actually, you know what? I may have an idea. Maybe. You have to stay tuned for that. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So follow us, though, on Twitter for @LockedOnCaps to get the latest details and obviously your latest Caps news as well. Follow me, the Insider of the Insiders, Tyler Kuehl, @TJKU29 on Twitter and Instagram for fun hockey posts and fun puppy pictures. Didn't get in this morning because Wixie was, well, she's a little tired still. Had a long day yesterday. Anyways, thank you all very much for listening and watching this episode of Locked On Capitals. We'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody.